Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX here with kind of a different video. I saw this posted a while back, and I wanted to do this, and it was put on my notes of video ideas, and they got buried under more and more and more notes. And when I tell you how long ago this was, you'll see just how far down it got buried. So, in 2014, December 17th, 2014 is when this I believe when this article was posted. IGN did an article talking about the Ultimate RPG Party revealed. They had actually put together a thing where it's like, hey, if you were to build your Ultimate RPG Party, who would it be and for what reasons? And it had characters that you could place in from tons of games and tons of different franchises. So you had like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, Dragon Age, Mass Effect. You had a lot of variables to throw in. Didn't have every game. I mean, obviously, there's too many of them to count. But it got me thinking, what would my Ultimate RPG Party be? And I love things like this. I love team building for a theme. And so, you know, building a party, that was just something that just kind of, it entertained me, to say the least. So I put together a team. I tried to have various rules for it to try to make it a little balanced. So one of the rules is I tried to not bring multiple people from the same game. So it's like if I pick Chrono Trigger, I'm going to pick one person from Chrono Trigger. I'm not going to pick like half the Chrono cast and then like shoehorn in someone else. I also tried to make it so that if there's a lot of customization, it's whatever the character's innate abilities are. So for games like Final Fantasy Tactics, like Agrias, whatever her base abilities are, not counting the sub-class abilities or any of the optional class abilities that you can equip for movement abilities or things like that. Just whatever the base character has, which will limit a lot because that basically cuts out a lot of usefulness for some characters, because a lot of characters in games do fall under a huge amount of customization, but a lot of them also still have a base set of abilities that this character will always have, and that's what I was trying to go for. So let's talk about my group, and I want everyone else to participate in this as well. I want you guys in the comments to start talking about what your, like, if you had to build a party to save the world for something based off of various RPGs, who would you pick? So, in the hero slot, the main person, the leader of this group, I have Shulk from Xenoblade. And that is... a lot of people might question that, given my history of RPGs that I've played on this channel. But Shulk is a very strong all-arounder. He's got some good abilities. His Monado arts actually make him quite dangerous. And then his base abilities are actually quite damaging. Just going through a list of abilities, he's got Turn Strike, Backslash, a Light Heal, Slit Edge, Stream Edge, Shadow Eye, Air Slash, Shaker Edge, and Battle Soul. And a lot of these things are meant for functionality to allow him to do other things. And then he's got the Monado arts, which are just damages. Damages enemies in a straight line. Allows enemies to damage mech on... So he's very anti-mech, which is also something that, you know, for most casts, good thing, because technology is a very interesting opposition to magic. But he's got a lot of useful abilities, and then, you know, his sword, his non-RPG abilities. Like, I love the concept of counterstance. I love it. But I know he does not have this. But like any other RPG, he does have the ability to, you know, counter or parry or block, and that sort of thing. So, but also, you know, super magic laser sword. Kind of awesome thing to have in a lot of instances. And with, you know, without spoiling it, he has a couple other abilities that are kind of neat to have in a party situation. So, he's the leader. Not a bad leader, in my opinion. Little inexperienced, but I think some of the best leaders start off that way. So next up we have Adalbert Steiner from Final Fantasy IX. He fills the role of damage dealer, and off tank. He's got really good defense, really good HP compared to a lot of his Final Fantasy IX companions, but he also has some of the most damaging abilities. They're not the most MP efficient abilities. For that, we would go with Freya from Final Fantasy IX, but Freya lacks the tanking aspects that I kind of wanted. I wanted someone to be able to absorb a couple of hits just in case, and that's where Steiner comes in, but he's got a lot of nice abilities. Dark Side, Minus Strike, both of those are actually really, really damaging. Minus Strike is those two combined are actually my two favorite combos. Use Dark Side to do damage to himself, to do damage to the enemy, and then Minus Strike deals the difference in his max HP versus his current HP. Not the most damaging ability. His most devastating ability is Shock, and that caps out at quad 9 damage. Also, one of the most expensive abilities that he's got. He does have a couple of other abilities, especially in Final Fantasy IX, that are broken. The Thunder Slash glitch being one, but I would assume that this is not involving glitched game mechanics because of poor coding. This would be what it's actually supposed to be. But then he's also got Charge, Magic Break, Mental Break. He can actually inflict statuses on his opponents to lower their stats. And then he also has sword magic abilities, which in Final Fantasy IX are linked to Vivi, but I would assume any offensive caster would be able to fill that role in a open universe type setting. So if you had another caster, they would be able to use Fire Sword with him for that particular purpose, if you wanted to have some interesting double techs. If not, his base abilities are still actually really, really strong. Again, I'm not counting any of his support abilities because those are ones that you would have to adjust as the player. So they're there, but you can't have all of them equipped at once. So there would be a lot of picking and choosing. But again, his base abilities are actually quite strong, and I'm kind of a fan of that. So next up we have our healer. Healer slash secondary caster, because she does have some offensive abilities as well. We have Rain from Tales of Symphonia, and her name is Rain Sage, but I always just call her Rain. She is our healer. A lot of abilities that focus mainly on healing and protecting. She does have a couple of really strong offensive spells, especially toward the end of the game, and then you start getting into her mystic arts type things. But first aid, barrier, recover, dispel. She has the ability to cast Inspect or Libra, depending on your spell knowledge. The ability to scan an enemy and see what their stats are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then, she does have a couple of offensive abilities like Photon, but she's pretty much one of my favorite healers, just all around. She's got a lot of potential to keep the group alive. And given how the group is kind of set up, that makes for a very, very hard to kill group. Next up, we have Millennia from Grandia 2. She fills the role of DD slash debuff. Again, not going with the mana eggs, just what abilities that she has innate. She has Arrow Shot, Heal Crush, Fallen Wings, Starving Tongue, Spellbinding Eye, and Grudging Claw. Very strong abilities. For those of you who watched my Grandia 2 Let's Play, Arrow Shot for its cancel effect, which I would assume in any other game would affect a stun-like status effect, plus Spellbinding Eye, which basically just stops everything, makes her a really rough person to fight. And then she's got Starving Tongue, which will heal herself and do incredible amounts of damage to the enemy. Grudging Claw, which just does insane amounts of damage. She's rough. Heal Crush also, I believe, has a status effect as well. Fallen Wings just for damage. She's got some. She's damage. She's got ranged because she carries a crossbow as her primary weapon. Not a bad character to have, especially having a personification of part of an evil god. Good group to have. good group member to have. Next up, we have Magus from Chrono Trigger. He also fits in the offensive caster. Most of his spells are all offensive based, but he also does have a little bit of melee to back up with his scythe. Plus, he has a variety of spells. He's got lightning, fire, ice, and dark. Access to 4 of, depending on what RPG you're using, that 4 is a good chunk of the available elemental spells for that world. So he's got the ability to do a little bit of damage. Say you come up to someone who's only weak to fire, he's got a fire ability, so your group has the ability to throw something out. Which, again, very versatile. He's got a little bit of backup damage for combat, especially if you go with whatever his ultimate weapon is. And that's another thing I never really talked about is these characters are, I'm assuming they have all of their abilities, but not max stats, but, somewhere in that they have access to all of these abilities. So Magus, all in all, not a bad character. Like, he could throw out some dangerous abilities, and then you've got, like, Dark Matter, Black Hole, which can instantly kill some of the weaker enemies, and then Barrier, so he can boost magic defense. Not a bad character. Like, I've always kind of liked Magus. He's got a little bit of the anti-hero, like I'm too much of a badass for my own good mentality, but it happens. And then the last person for this party, we went with this, following the IGN article, a 6-person party. This is Durin from Seiken Densetsu 3, and his class, and this is one I actually have to specify because he does have the ability to go through classes throughout the game, which I guess kind of counts as character adjustment, but all of his abilities are set, so I kind of just took it as going this class. But he doesn't have the ability to change abilities once he is in a set class, so it's I figure the class itself is the limiting factor. But he would go Swordmaster, much like I did in Seiken Densetsu 3. Durin's abilities in Seiken Densetsu, he has his previous techs, plus he has Vacuum Sword, which is a really good AoE attack. Not his best AoE attack, but it's decent. But his spells are what brought him in. He has multi-target saber spells, which inflict elemental damage to melee attacks. So this is another one of those, if you need a specific element to do damage, this is where that would help. He has the ability to equip all of his team to be able to cast Diamond Saber, which casts ice, Thunder Saber, which is lightning, Flame Saber, Diamond Saber is earth, Thunder Saber is lightning, Flame Saber is fire, and Ice Saber is ice. So he can have those spells, those saber spells, on the entire team. But then he also has single target spells, which he can cast on himself or another person, but it takes time to cast on multiple people. Moon Saber or Leaf Saber, which adds the ability to drain HP or MP from your target. So you do damage with one, and you get back a set percentage of HP or MP, depending on which one of those two spells you've got. So, not a bad thing to have on, say, Magus, who's a good damage dealer, but also can burn through MP very quickly. Have him siphon back some MP through his damage. Same with Steiner. Steiner's ability to throw out, shock is great for maximum damage, but it takes a ton of MP. He's also not a bad melee unit, so he can go in and do some damage with that saber equipped, get back some of his MP. Or as a tank, he could do damage to keep his HP up, to take a little bit of the strain off the healers. So I think it's a pretty interesting, balanced group. They have the ability to do a lot of things. They're not the strongest in any one particular area, but I think they've got enough of a theme going to where they can back each other up, to where it would be very difficult to kill this party, but they would also be able to put out a very respectable amount of damage. So this was my ultimate RPG party based off of whatever craziness was going on in my head at the time. Like I said, I really liked this concept. I would love to hear all of your your ultimate parties. I came up with other parties as well, like an all-hero group, or an all-female group, or all spellcaster, or all melee. There's so many different options of things that I just sat there and started coming up with of what would be good team ideas. So I really want to hear everyone else's ultimate teams. And like I said, I kept this as a group of 6. You can do 6 or fewer. I think once you get past 6, it starts getting a little rough in terms of balance. Like you get a group of 10 people, obviously they're going to just crash through everything. Depending on the game. Like if you're playing a tactical RPG like Shining Force, you're about it. So 12 people would be your team. But you also have to take into consideration all of those people only have like 4 abilities for the most part. So yeah. But yeah, I went with 6. Again, I believe that was what the original IGN article went with for their base party. So let me know your party setup, and what prompted you to pick these people. What strengths and abilities were you looking at? What type of team were you looking to build? And why these characters fit in your team. I'd love to hear that, either as just comments in the comment section, or you can do video response and link it to me, and I'll post it as well in the either description of this one, or I'll find a way to link it. I remember when you could do video responses here on YouTube and make it so much easier to deal with. But let me know your Ultimate RPG party, and because I'd love to hear it. This type of thing just really entertains me so much. So I will see you in future installments of whatever weirdness I can come up with. So till then, later everyone.